The first time Wren fed the black wolf, she was barefoot in the frost, holding a chipped clay bowl of rabbit stew with both hands so it wouldn't spill. The wolf watching her from the edge of the bee yard was the largest she had ever seen, black as a chimney at midnight, ribs showing through his coat like the slats of a broken fence. What Wren did not know, what she could not possibly know, was that this starving animal was Kyle Draven, Alpha King of the Northern Reaches, ruler of 11 packs, the wolf whose name made war councils go quiet. He had been poisoned 3 nights ago at his own table. He had run until the wolfsbane burned itself out of his blood, and now he was too weak to shift, too proud to die, and too hungry to refuse a bowl of stew from a barefoot Omega girl who smelled like lavender and wood smoke. She set the bowl down in the frozen grass and stepped back exactly 3 paces. "It's not much," she said. "The rabbit was old, and so am I, at heart. But it's warm." He meant to eat and leave. He meant to stay one night. I was wrong. The cottage stood at the burned edge of the Thornwood territory, past the graves nobody visited, where the pack sent things it wanted to forget. Wren had lived there 4 years, ever since the Thornwood Council declared her scent-blind and useless for bonding, and quietly stopped sending her share of the winter meat. She had not argued. Arguing required someone willing to listen. Instead, she had taken her grandmother's bee smoker and her grandmother's habit of walking barefoot among the hives. Because bees know the tread of bare feet, her grandmother always said, and they will not sting what they trust. Wren sold honey and beeswax candles to the village on market days. She set the broken bones of things people brought her in secret: a hunting hound with a snapped foreleg, a hawk with a wing bent wrong, once a child whose father did not want the pack healer asking questions about the bruises. She fixed what came to her door. She did not ask why it came. So when a black wolf the size of a plough horse came, she fed it. Kale ate the stew in 4 swallows and hated himself for licking the bowl. Inside his skull, the man and the wolf were having an argument. "This is beneath us," the man said. "We are a king. We do not take charity from Omegas in dead packs." The wolf did not answer. The wolf was looking at the girl's bare feet, blue-white in the frost, and thinking that she had given away the stew that was clearly her own supper, because the pot hanging over her fire was empty now. He could smell it, iron and rosemary and nothing else. The wolf was thinking, "She is cold, and she fed us anyway." "She is a stranger," the man said. "She smells like lavender," said the wolf, and that was the end of the argument, though the man did not know it yet. Wren crouched at her 3-pace distance, arms wrapped around her knees. Up close, he could see what the pack's neglect had made of her. A grey wool dress gone thin at the elbows, hands nicked with small white scars from wax knives and bee stings. 19, maybe 20, with dark hair braided crooked because no one had ever taught her to do it in a mirror. "You're hurt," she said. "There's blood on your hind leg, old blood, and you're shaking, but not from cold. Wolves don't shake from cold, so it's the shaking that comes after poison. I've seen it in dogs that eat the wrong bait." She stood and held her door open. Firelight fell out of it in a long orange stripe across the frost. "I won't touch you if you don't want, but you'll die out here, and I'd rather you didn't. I just dug 3 graves this autumn, and my shoulders are tired." Kale Draven, who had once made an entire war delegation kneel by lowering his voice, walked through her door because a girl said her shoulders were tired. That first night, she did not try to pet him. This astonished him. Everyone tried to touch a wolf, to prove something, to take something. Wren simply built up the fire, dragged her own straw mattress off its frame, and pushed it towards the hearth and pointed at it. "That's yours for tonight. I'll take the chair. Don't look at me like that. I sleep in the chair half the time. Anyway, my hip aches and sitting up helps." She wrapped herself in a patched quilt that smelled of beeswax and settled by the window with her feet tucked under her. "If you're going to die," she added, matter of fact, "please do it quietly. If you're going to live, there's water in the pail." He lived. She washed the crusted wound on his hindquarters at dawn with warm water and a rag, humming under her breath, some tuneless five-note thing she repeated over and over, and her hands were so careful, so unhurried, that the wolf's tail thumped once against the floor before the man could stop it. "We leave today," the man said. "We leave tomorrow," said the wolf. They stayed 9 days. On the 10th day, Kael's strength came back enough to shift, and he did it alone in the thornwood at moonset, bones cracking back into kingship, and he stood barefoot himself in the dark, a tall, scarred man with winter-grey eyes, breathing hard. He should go home. Someone at his own table had put wolfsbane in his wine, and his beta Cassian was probably tearing the palace apart, stone by stone, looking for him. He was a king. Kings did not disappear to eat stew. I went home. He tore through his court like weather. He questioned the wine steward, doubled the guard, let the council see him healthy and cold-eyed, so the poisoner would sweat. And that night, when the palace slept, the Alpha King of the northern reaches shifted into a black wolf, ran 11 miles through the pines, and scratched at the door of a beekeeper's cottage like a dog wanting in. Wren opened the door in her nightgown, blinked at him, and said, "Oh, it's you. I made too much barley porridge, which is lucky, or possibly I knew." She had not known. He had smelled the porridge from 2 miles out. He shoved past her knees and sat by the fire like he paid taxes on it. This became the shape of things, and Cassian was the first to notice. "My king," Cassian said, one grey morning in the map room. "There is pine sap on your shoulder. Also, if I may, you smell of lavender and smoke. And forgive me, honey. I was inspecting the eastern border," said Kael, not looking up from the maps. "On foot, at night, alone, for the 4th time this fortnight. A king inspects what he pleases. Of course, my king." Cassian paused with the patience of a man who had known Kael since they were both 6 years old, and biting each other over a wooden sword. "The eastern border reports no sightings of you. It does report, however, a very large black wolf seen carrying a woman's shawl in its mouth through the thornwood." "Rogue wolf," said Kael. "Have it watched." "It is being watched," Cassian said gravely. "By me, currently." The shawl had been the first theft. Wren left it on the fence post by the hives one warm afternoon, and the wolf simply took it, trotted off into the trees with it, and slept that day in the royal apartments, with the shawl tucked under his chin. And when the man woke up in his own enormous bed, clutching grey wool that smelled of lavender, he told himself it was strategic. Scent familiarization, a security matter. The second theft went the other direction. Wren woke to find a pheasant on her doorstep, fat and fresh-killed, laid out neatly with its feathers smoothed. Then it was 2 rabbits. Then a haunch of venison she could not lift with one arm, and she stood over it with her hands on her hips and told the wolf, who was pretending to be asleep by the hives, "You are the worst-mannered gift-giver I have ever met. You can't just leave a quarter of a deer on someone's step like a threat. There are neighborly ways to do things." Then she smoked the whole haunch over apple wood and fed him half of it. So the lesson, whatever it was, did not take. The third incident, Kyle would deny to his grave. It was the comb. A silver comb, set with river pearls, part of the royal treasury's tribute from the Silver Pine pack. And one morning it was simply gone from the vault antechamber. And one evening it was simply lying on Wren's windowsill. And when the guard captain reported the theft, the Alpha King said, in front of 6 witnesses, "Perhaps we have mice," in a tone that ended the investigation forever. Wren never wore the comb. She thought someone had lost it, and she asked in the village for weeks after its owner, which caused Kyle physical pain. But she kept it on the windowsill where the light hit it, and sometimes she touched it when she thought no one was watching. And the wolf watching from the tree line felt his chest do something that the man refused to name. The fourth escalation was the bath, and it was, Kyle maintained, entirely an accident. Wren bathed in the big tin tub by the fire on Sundays, water heated in relays, lavender oil, her one luxury, 3 drops. The wolf had a rhythm by then, arriving well after dark. And that Sunday, he arrived early. Nosed open the door. She never latched because who came out here? And stood in the doorway, while Wren sat in the tub with her hair soaped into a white crown, singing her 5-note nothing song. "Leave," said the man, in a voice like a dropped anvil. "Leave immediately. She'll be embarrassed if we bolt," reasoned the wolf, already lying down. "This is more polite." Wren shrieked, laughed at herself for shrieking, and threw a wet rag that hit him between the eyes. "You have the manners of a goat. Turn around, at least." The wolf turned around. He faced the wall like a sentry, ears rigid, while she finished and dressed, and she was so charmed by a wolf that understood turn around, that she toweled her hair, sitting against his flank, leaning her whole small weight into him, and told him he was a good, terrible animal. The man spent the following council meeting staring at a treaty without reading a single word of it. The fifth escalation, the bed, was not an escalation at all by then. It was just true. Winter came down hard in the 11th week, wind screaming off the mountains, and Wren's fire could not fight it alone. And she woke one black, freezing night to find 160 pounds of royal wolf stretched along her back like a wall against the cold. And she was warm, warmer than she had been in 4 winters, and she sighed and pushed her frozen feet into his fur and went back to sleep. The wolf lay awake for a long time. Her feet were like 2 lumps of ice against his belly. He did not move all night. She feeds our feet warmth back into her, the man thought, muddled, near dawn, which did not even make sense. And the wolf said softly, "Mate." And the man pretended very hard that he had not heard it. By midwinter, Wren talked to the wolf the way other people talked to gods or graves. This is what changed everything, though neither of them saw it coming. It started small. Complaints about the price of jar wax. An account of the baker's son, who shortchanged her, and how she had let him, because his mother was sick and she couldn't stand to make his week worse. But the nights got longer, and the wolf was such a listener, unmoving, golden-eyed, his great head heavy on her lap, while her fingers worked absently through the fur behind his ears. And one night in the deep of January, she told him the thing she had never said out loud. "They tested me when I was 15, she said. Her voice was even. Her hand in his fur was not. "The whole pack does it," the scent right, they line you up, and the elders read what you'll be. And when they got to me, the elder went very still and said, "Scent blind. Broken bond gland. She can't take a mate, and no mate will take her." The fire popped. Outside, snow tapped the window like fingernails. My father didn't say anything. That's what I remember. Not that he defended me and lost. He just didn't say anything. And then at supper he sat one seat further away, and by spring everyone did, and no one ever decided to send me here exactly. I just noticed one day that the only footprints in the snow around this cottage were mine. The wolf did not move. Under her hand, his heartbeat had gone very fast. "The stupid thing is," Wren said, and here her voice finally bent, "I do smell things. I smell everything. I can smell the difference between clover honey and heather honey with the jar closed. So either the elder read me wrong, or the thing I'm supposed to smell just isn't out there. And I've decided I don't mind. I have the bees and the fire. And now I have you, and you eat like a horse and steal my laundry. But you come back. That's more than anyone else ever did. You come back." She bent down and pressed her face into the ruff of his neck, and the black wolf lay perfectly still. And inside him a king was coming apart like wet paper. She was not scent blind. Cale knew it the way he knew his own name. She smelled of lavender to everyone, perhaps. But to him, she smelled like the first rain after a burn, like the answer to a question. His blood had been asked for 31 years, and there was a word for that, the oldest word. And the elder who had stood in front of a 15-year-old girl and called her broken had simply been too small a creature to read a bond meant for a king. "Tell her," said the wolf. "She'll hate us," said the man. 90 nights we've lain in her bed, and never once had the courage to knock on her door on 2 legs. It's too far gone. It will break her. "Coward," said the wolf, and for once the man had no answer. He compromised, the way cowards do. The next market day, the Alpha King rode into the Thornwood village on official inspection, and he arranged, with the raw ineptitude of a man who could plan wars but not conversations, to encounter the honey stall. Wren looked up from her jars into the winter-grey eyes of the most powerful alpha alive, and curtsied wrong, and knocked over a jar of heather honey, and caught it, and said, "That one's cracked now, so it's half price, but honestly the crack is on me, so free. Your Majesty, sir. You give away your stock to anyone who startles you." His court voice came out colder than he meant. It always did. "Only kings," she said. "You're a small financial risk. There's just the one of you." Behind him, Cassian made a sound like a man swallowing a laugh whole. Kael bought 11 jars of honey at triple price over her protests, could not think of a single further human sentence, and rode away rigid as a lance. That night, Wolf arrived at her door before the moon was even up, and Wren sat down next to him, with her chin on her knees, and said, "I met the Alpha King today. He's terrifying. Eyes like the sky before hail. I'm glad you're not like that." And she kissed the top of his black head. And somewhere in the dark, the man screamed silently into the void of himself. Then came Thomas, and everything caught fire. Thomas was a traveling apothecary, 25, sunburned, with a wagon of tinctures and a laugh he handed out like samples. He came through the Thornwood every spring, and this spring he lingered. He needed beeswax for salves, he said. He needed honey for cough syrups, he said. He needed, apparently, to lean on Wren's fence for 2 hours at a stretch, repairing her smoker unasked, telling her about the coast, saying things like, "A woman with your hands is wasted on a dead pack. Come south, I'd take you on as a partner," and other things where the word partner did a great deal of quiet work. Wren liked him. That was the terrible part. He was kind in the ordinary daylight way she'd never been offered, and she laughed at his jokes, and she did not see, because she was not looking, the enormous black shape in the tree line whose eyes tracked Thomas's every gesture like a debt being tallied. The wolf handled it with dignity at first. He left a dead boar across the path where Thomas's wagon needed to pass. A message. Thomas, a practical man, butchered it and gave Wren the best cuts, and she said, "What is it with males leaving me meat?" And the wolf nearly bit through his own tongue. The breaking point came on an April evening. Kyle arrived in the trees at dusk and heard, across the bee yard, Thomas saying, "Let me see your hand. You've a sting gone bad," and saw him take Wren's small scarred hand in both of his and bend over it, close, his thumb drawing the stinger with real gentleness, and Wren looking up at him with her braid crooked and her feet bare in the spring grass, and the wolf's vision went white at the edges. He did not attack. Afterward, that was the only thing he was proud of. But the alpha king of the northern reaches walked out of the tree line on 2 legs, in full royal blacks, having no memory of shifting, and said, in the voice that stopped wars, "You, apothecary, your permit to trade in the crown territories. Show it to me." Thomas went the color of tallow. His permit, produced with shaking hands, was fine. It was completely in order. Kyle examined it for 4 full minutes in the dark, like a man diffusing something, handed it back and said, "The southern roads are better for your trade. I would take them soon." And Thomas, who was reckless but not stupid, took them at dawn. Wren stood in her own bee yard through all of it, barefoot, bewildered, and then slowly, furious. "That was my friend," she said, to the king, to his face, and Cassian, arriving breathless at the fence line with 2 guards, actually froze. Nobody said that tone of words to the Alpha King. "I have had 1 visitor in 4 years who came in daylight, and you ran him off over a permit. Why? What is it to you? What could I possibly matter to you?" And Cale Draven looked at her flashing eyes and her bare feet, and the fence he had slept beside 90 nights and said everything, and stood there unable to make his mouth produce the word. And what came out instead, in his flattest court voice, was, "The crown takes an interest in all its territories." Wren's jaw set. Then the crown can buy its honey elsewhere. She walked inside and shut the door. It was the first time in 4 years she had latched it. That night the wolf came and scratched, and the door did not open, and he lay against it until dawn in the cold. And through the wood he could hear her not crying, which was worse. Hear her moving around her cottage in short, angry lines, and once very quietly saying to the fire, even the king finds ways to take things from me." And the man inside the wolf understood at last that the coward's road had run out. He did not get to choose his moment. The poisoner chose it for him. Councillor Vesk had watched his king recover from wolfsbane, watched him vanish nightly, and had done the arithmetic of survival. A king with a hidden weakness was a king who could still be killed if you found the weakness first. He hired trackers. The trackers found a cottage. And on a wet May night, while the king sat trapped in a treaty session 11 miles away, 4 hired rogues came through the thornwood for the barefoot girl who was, by every report, the reason the black wolf ran east. Wren was smoking the hives at dusk when she smelled them, wrong sweat and iron, and she was fast. She made the cottage. She got the bar down. But there were 4 of them and 1 door, and the window burst inward in a spray of glass, and her silver comb spun off the sill into the dark. What saved her life was 11 miles of ground and 1 unbarred truth. Kael felt her terror down the bond like a hook through his sternum, mid-sentence, in front of the full council, and the assembled lords of the northern reaches watched their king come up out of his chair, already shifting, crown ringing off the stone floor, and go through the chamber's oak doors without opening them. He ran the 11 miles in 19 minutes. He came through the broken window as a wolf and took the first rogue off her, and then, because the second had a knife to her throat, and a wolf's teeth were too slow for that geometry, he shifted, right there, mid-leap, black fur to bare skin, and winter eyes, and Wren, pinned against her own hearth, watched her wolf become the alpha king in the space of a heartbeat. The fight after that was short. Kael in a rage was a thing the ballads undersold. When it was done, 3 rogues bound and 1 never getting up, Cassian's guards pouring in late through the wrecked door, the king stood in the ruin of her cottage, chest heaving, blood on his hands, and turned to face her. Wren was very still. Her eyes went from his face to the straw mattress by the hearth, to the tin tub in the corner, to the window sill where the comb had been. And he watched her do the arithmetic, every night, every meal, every secret. And her face went white, and then red, and then to something worse than either, a kind of terrible calm. "The stew," she said. "Wren, the stew, the first night. That was you. You licked the bowl. Wren, listen." "The bath," she said, and her voice cracked up an octave. "You sat in my house while I bathed. You slept in my bed. All winter. I put my feet on you. I told you about my father. I told you things I have never said to a living soul, because I thought no soul was listening. I thought you were an animal. I thought you were mine." And there it was, the wound under the wound. And you were the king, playing peasant girl's pet on your nights off. Was it funny? Did you tell them at court? The scent-blind Omega who sings to her supper. "No one knew," Kael said. "No one has ever known." "Wren, I came the first night because I was dying and you fedded me. I came the second night because I could not stop. The comb, the pheasant, the venison, the shawl. That was all of it. I know how it sounds. The laundry theft as well. And I want it recorded that I have declared war on men who did less to me than that apothecary did, handing you a jar of salve." He was talking too fast. Kings never talked too fast. "I sat by your fire 91 nights, because they are the only nights of my life that have belonged to me. And I did not tell you because I am a coward. On 4 legs I could be wanted. On 2 legs I am a treaty. I could not bear to watch your face do what every face does when the crown walks in. And that was theft, worse than the shawl. I stole your honesty and paid you back in fur." The cottage was silent. Glass ticked out of the window frame. Cassian, in the doorway, was studying the ceiling with enormous diplomatic interest. Wren wrapped her arms around herself. Her feet were bare on the glass-strewn floor, and she didn't seem to feel it, and Kael wanted to lift her out of the wreckage and knew he had lost the right. "The elder said I'd never have a mate. she said finally, very quietly. And I made my peace. I built a life the size of what I was allowed. And you knew, you must have known. You can smell what I am. And you let me sit in the dark, telling my one friend in the world that no mate existed for me, while he was lying across my feet. She looked up, and her eyes were wet and blazing. Get out of my house, Your Majesty. The wolf can come back when he's sorry. I don't know you at all. He went. King's command. Mates obey. He stationed guards in the trees at a distance she'd never see. And he went home. And he did the only honest thing left in his reach. He tore the conspiracy up by the roots in 3 days. Ves had been careful, but Kyle no longer was, and it was Lady Maren of Silverpine, of all people, who broke it open, the arranged intended Luna the council had been pressing on him for a year, a polished, ambitious woman who had every reason to let the beekeeper die. She came to Kyle's study at midnight with Vesk's coded ledger, laid it on the desk, and stood there a moment with her court mask slipping. My mother went barefoot too, Maren said, to no question anyone had asked. Before Silverpine made her a Luna, they put her in shoes, and she died at 40 with her feet pinched and her name on treaties she never read. She straightened her mask back on. I wanted the crown, Draven. I won't insult you by pretending otherwise. But I sat in council watching you feel that girl's fear from 11 miles away, and I find I can't build a throne on top of that. Vesk approached me in the autumn. I said no. I should have said no louder. She turned at the door. Tell your beekeeper to wear shoes when it suits her, and never when it doesn't. It's the whole secret. My mother would have liked her. Vesk faced the assembled packs at the Moon Court a week later. And it was there, before 11 pack heads and 400 wolves, with the traitor kneeling in chains, that the doors at the back of the great hall opened, because Kyle had sent one message to the Thornwood, not a summons, a single line. The man who poisoned me sent the men who broke your window, and if you want to see him answer for it, the doors will open for you. Wren came. She came in her grey dress, with her braid crooked, and she came barefoot, deliberately, defiantly, 400 pairs of court shoes, and her cold bare feet slapping the marble, and the hall rippled with murmurs, and Cale Draven rose off his throne. Before judgment, he said, and his voice filled the vault. The court will know why this man dies. He raised his hand against the crown twice, once with wolfsbane in my cup, once with knives sent against an unarmed Omega of the Thornwood, because he had learned what I am done hiding. He came down the dire steps, all of them, until he stood on the floor like any wolf in front of a beekeeper. This is Wren of the Thornwood, who was told at 15 she was broken, by an elder who could not read what was written in her, because it was not written for him. It was written for me. She is my fated mate. She fed me when I was dying, and she owns every night I have ever spent gladly. And whoever names her sent blind again, or lesser, or Omega as an insult, answers to the crown's teeth. She is mine. The word rolled through the hall like a struck bell. Then quieter, only for her, wrecked and hoping. If she will have me. Both of me. The king is a stiff, cold, jealous fool. But the wolf came back every night, and the wolf was always the honest one. And they are, for better or worse, the same animal. Wren stood in the ringing silence, with 400 wolves watching, and she looked up at him for a long, long moment. "You owe me a shawl," she said, "and a window, and 91 suppers." Her chin trembled, and her eyes were bright, and her voice, when it came again, came soft. "And the wolf can come home now. He's sorry enough." The hall came apart in noise. Somewhere in it, Cassian could be heard saying to a fellow guard, in tones of profound vindication, "Rogue wolf, have it watched. I want that on my tombstone." They did not move her to the palace. That was her single condition, delivered barefoot in the treasury while advisers fainted quietly into ledgers. The palace, instead, moved partly to her. The crown built its eastern seat in the Thornwood, a long stone house with wide windows, and the hives came with her, all 11 of them, resettled in the south garden under Wren's supervision and the deep suspicion of the royal gardeners, who learned quickly that the Luna of the northern reaches would tolerate opinions about anything except her bees. The Thornwood pack that had let her freeze for 4 years sent a delegation of elders with gifts and rehearsed warmth. Wren received them politely, served them her own honey, and sent them home with nothing decided. And when Kyle asked afterward if she wanted them punished or forgiven, she said, "Neither. I want them to live a long time knowing exactly which footprints weren't in the snow." And the king looked at his soft-hearted mate and remembered, not for the last time, that bees are gentle right up until they are not. On a warm evening in late summer, a year almost to the frost of that first bowl of stew, the south garden of the eastern seat held the following scene, and any guard on the wall could see it, and by standing order none of them were permitted to remark on it. The Luna of the northern reaches sat in the grass among her hives in her old grey dress, feet bare, hair braided crooked because some things do not change, and her mate had forbidden anyone to teach her otherwise. A crown lay upside down in the clover beside her, holding down a paper of pressed wax like a paperweight, which was mostly what it was used for. Across her lap, filling it entirely and overflowing on both sides, lay the head of an enormous black wolf, eyes shut, tail moving in slow contentment through the grass. The evening bees drifted home around them both in golden loops, unbothered, because they knew the tread of her bare feet, and they had long ago decided the big black creature was a strange sort of hive and let him be. Wren broke a piece of comb from the frame beside her, honey stringing gold in the last light, and held it down to his muzzle on her open palm. "Slowly," she said. "You eat like a horse. I don't care what the ballads say." The wolf took it from her hand with a delicacy that would have astonished 11 packs, and licked her palm clean, and shifted his great weight so that her cold feet, bare in the cooling grass, were tucked underneath the warmth of his chest, exactly where they had spent the winter, exactly where they belonged. Wren leaned back on her hands and watched the first star come up over the Thornwood, humming her 5-note song, and the king of the northern reaches, who had meant to stay one night, closed his eyes against her knee and stayed.